The rain fell hard that morning. Cold drops ran down my coat, past my hands, and into the dust. I stood outside the bakery window, watching the loaves turn golden in the oven. The smell made my stomach twist. I hadn't eaten since yesterday. The baker saw me standing there. He frowned. "You again," he said. I nodded. "Yes, please, sir. I need some bread." He crossed his arms. "No money, no bread." "I can work," I whispered. My voice shook. "I'll clean. I'll wash dishes. I'll work for bread." He sighed and looked away. "We don't need help." I lowered my eyes. My shoes were full of mud. My heart felt heavy. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Behind me, I heard boots stop in the puddle. A deep voice said, "You said you'll work?" I turned. A tall man stood there, hat low over his eyes. His coat was soaked, his hands rough. He looked like a man who knew both hunger and silence. "Yes," I said quietly. "I can work." He studied me for a moment. "You from around here?" "No," I said. "I came from the city. What brings you here?" "My husband left me," I said. "He took everything. I have nowhere to go." He looked at the baker, then back at me. "You'll work for bread, huh?" "Yes," he nodded once. "All right. You can work for me. I got a ranch west of town. Plenty to do there." I blinked. "Work? Real work?" "Real work," he said. "But it's hard work." The baker snorted. "You sure about that, Ethan?" She looked soft. The cowboy, Ethan, I guess, didn't answer. He just turned his eyes to me. "You willing to work, miss?" "I am," I said. "I'll do anything." He nodded again. "Name's Ethan Cole. You can call me Ethan." "I'm Grace," I said softly. Ethan handed the baker a coin. "Give her something to eat." The baker hesitated, then wrapped a warm loaf in paper and handed it to me. I took it with both hands. The heat burned my fingers, but it felt good. "Thank you," I said to Ethan. He tipped his hat. "Eat first, then come with me." I sat under the awning and tore the bread apart. It was soft inside, warm and sweet. I ate slowly, trying not to cry. Ethan stood nearby, silent, watching the rain hit the street. After a while, he said, "How long since you had a home?" 2 weeks, I said. "Since Daniel left?" "Daniel, your husband?" "Yes, he said he needed a better life. I wasn't part of it." Ethan grunted. "Some men forget their promises." I swallowed. "He did." When I finished eating, he said, "Let's go." We walked down the muddy street together. His horse waited near the blacksmith's. The animal's breath came out like white smoke in the cold air. Ethan helped me climb up behind him. I'd never been on a horse before. "Hold tight," he said. I did. My hands wrapped around his coat. The smell of leather and dust filled my nose. It felt strange but safe. We rode out of town. The rain softened to a drizzle. I watched the land spread wide, brown fields, gray sky, broken fences. It was quiet except for the horses' steps and the wind. After a long while, I said, "Why are you helping me?" He didn't turn. "Because once someone helped me." "Your wife?" I asked softly. He didn't answer. His shoulders stiffened. "We'll talk later," I nodded. We didn't speak again for miles. By the time we reached the ranch, the sun was low. The sky was orange and purple, wide like forever. The ranch was small, wooden fences, a barn, a single house with a porch. Smoke came from the chimney. "This is it," Ethan said. "It's beautiful," I said. He looked around like he wasn't sure. "It's old. Needs work. I can clean," I said. "Cook too." He smiled a little. "We'll see." He helped me down from the horse. My legs were stiff. I almost fell, but he caught my arm. His hand was warm. "Easy," he said. "Sorry," I whispered. "No need," he said. "You'll get used to it." Inside the house, everything smelled of wood and smoke. The floor creaked under my boots. A small lamp burned on the table. "You can stay in the back room," Ethan said. "It's not much. It's more than I had," I said. He nodded. "You'll start work in the morning. We rise early here." "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir," he said. "Just Ethan." "All right, Ethan." He looked at me again, long and quiet. "You sure you're ready for this?" "Ranch life ain't easy." "I'm ready," I said. "I need this." "Need what?" "To start again." He gave a slow nod. "All right then. Supper's on the stove. Eat what you need." "What about you?" I asked. "I already ate." "You always eat alone?" He looked away. "Most nights." I didn't ask more. I found stew in a pot, still warm. I ate by the fire, listening to the rain on the roof. The walls shook a little with the wind. I thought about Daniel, the lies, the money he stole, the last thing he said, "You're nothing without me." But now I was here. Maybe I was still something. Ethan came in from the porch, dripping rain. He hung his hat on the wall. "You done eating?" he asked. "Yes, thank you," he nodded. "There's water in the barrel out back if you want to wash up." "All right." Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean. I washed my hands and face in the cold water. My reflection in the barrel looked like a stranger. My hair was tangled, eyes red, but I felt alive again. When I came back in, Ethan was sitting by the fire, mending a leather strap. "You been on a ranch before?" he asked. "No," I said. "I worked in a store once. Sold dresses," he chuckled. "Not much call for that out here." "I can learn," I said quickly. "I believe you," he said. He looked at me for a long moment. The firelight made his eyes softer, sad somehow. "You got anyone waiting for you back there?" "No one," I said. "Just memories." He nodded. "Sometimes memories are heavier than people." "They are," I whispered. The clock ticked. The wind howled outside. He said, "You can rest now. We start at dawn." "Yes, Ethan." I stood to leave, but then turned. "Why me? You don't even know me." He smiled faintly. "You said you'll work for bread. Folks who say that usually mean it." I felt my throat tighten. "Thank you." He tipped his hat again, even though he wasn't wearing it. "Get some sleep, Grace." The small back room had one bed, one chair, one window. The sheets smelled of soap and hay. I sat down, took a deep breath, and closed my eyes. The silence pressed around me. I thought of the city lights, Daniel's voice, the sound of doors closing. Then I thought of Ethan's quiet voice in the rain. "You'll work for me." It didn't sound like pity. It sounded like a beginning. I lay down, listening to the wind move through the open fields. The house creaked, but it felt alive. I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks, safe. My stomach was full. My hands smelled of bread and soap. My heart still hurt, but the pain had a place to rest now. Tomorrow, I would start working. I would clean the barn, cook the meals, feed the horses, wash the clothes. I would earn my keep. But tonight, I whispered into the dark, "Thank you, God, for the bread, and for the man who gave it." Outside, the rain began again, soft and slow, like a song that didn't want to end. I listened until sleep came, and for the first time in a long while, I dreamed not of what I had lost, but of what might still be found. The truck stopped in front of a small wooden house. The sun was setting behind the hills. The sky looked like fire. I held my bag close and felt the wind hit my face. Ethan climbed out first. "Come on," he said quietly. "You can stay here." I followed him up the steps. The floor creaked. The door opened with a soft sound, like a sigh. Inside it was quiet, too quiet. I smelled dust, wood, and something warm. Maybe old bread. He pointed at a chair near the kitchen. "You can sit," he said. I sat down slowly. My hands were cold. I didn't know what to say. "This place is old," he added. "Needs work. You'll help with cooking and cleaning." "That okay?" "Yes," I said. My voice was small. He nodded once. "I'll pay fair. Not much, but enough for food and some clothes." "That's fine," I said. "I don't need much." Ethan looked at me for a second, then looked away. He had tired eyes. I could tell he didn't talk much. He walked to the stove, took an old kettle, and filled it with water. "You hungry?" he asked. "Yes," I said, almost whispering. He opened a tin box and took out 2 pieces of bread. He put them on a small plate and pushed it toward me. "Eat," he said. I took a bite. It was dry, but it tasted like peace. For a moment I wanted to cry. "Thank you," I said. He nodded. "You're welcome." The room stayed silent for a while. I watched the flames in the small stove. He leaned against the counter with crossed arms. I felt like we were both waiting for something to start. "Where are you from?" he asked after a while. "Chicago," I said. "I lived there all my life." He raised his eyebrows. "Big city. What brings you here?" "I needed work," I said simply. He waited for more, but I didn't speak. He didn't ask again. That silence felt safe somehow. After a while, he said, "There's a spare room down the hall. You can sleep there. Tomorrow we start early. What time?" "Sunrise," I smiled weakly. "That early?" "That's when the horses wake," he said with a small grin. It was the first time I saw him smile. When he left the room, I looked around. The house had old wooden walls, a few pictures, a clock that didn't move. One picture showed a woman with light hair and kind eyes. She was smiling at the camera, standing beside Ethan. I felt something in my chest, pain, or maybe curiosity. I wanted to ask who she was, but I kept quiet. The next morning I woke before sunrise. The air was cold. I washed my face, tied my hair, and walked to the kitchen. Ethan was already there, pouring coffee. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I said. "What should I do first?" He looked at me for a second. "You can start with the kitchen. Then maybe help Tommy with the stable." "Who's Tommy?" "You'll see. He's the boy who works here, always late," he said with a small smile. I smiled too. "All right." He handed me a cup of coffee. "Be careful," he said. "It's strong." I took a sip and coughed. He laughed softly. "Told you. I guess I'm not used to cowboy coffee," I said. "You'll learn," he replied. We didn't talk much after that. I cleaned the shelves, swept the floor, and wiped the dust from the windows. Outside the world was quiet. No cars, no noise, just the wind and the sound of horses. Tommy came in around noon. He looked about 15, thin and quick. "Hey," he said, looking at me. "You the new lady?" "Yes," I said. "I'm Grace. I'm Tommy," he said. "You cook?" "I try," I said with a smile. "Good. Ethan's food is terrible." I laughed for the first time in days. Ethan walked in just then. "Tommy," he said, "get back to work." Tommy rolled his eyes but smiled. "Yes, boss." Ethan looked at me. "Don't listen to him. I cook just fine." I laughed again. "We'll see about that." That afternoon, I baked bread. The smell filled the kitchen. Ethan walked in, took a deep breath, and said, "Smells good. Better than your cooking?" I teased. He smiled. "Much better." For a moment, the house felt warm. The silence between us was different now, softer. When we sat to eat, he asked, "Why did you leave the city, really?" I looked down at my hands. Because I had nothing left there. He didn't press me. He just nodded slowly and said, "Sometimes losing everything is how you start again." His words stayed with me all evening. At night, I went to my room. It was small but clean. The bed creaked. The blanket smelled like old cotton. I sat by the window and watched the stars. The sky here was bigger, clearer. I heard Ethan moving in the next room. The floorboards creaked softly. Then everything was quiet again. Something about the quiet scared me. In the city, silence meant danger or loneliness. But here it felt honest, like the house was breathing. I whispered to myself, "You're safe now." But part of me didn't believe it yet. The next few days passed quickly. I worked hard. I cooked, cleaned, washed clothes, and helped with the animals. Ethan worked from dawn till dark. He spoke little, but when he did, his words had weight. "Don't rush," he'd say when I made mistakes. "Work steady. The ranch needs patience." Sometimes I'd see him standing by the window, staring at that picture of the woman. I wanted to ask, but I didn't. I just said, "You okay?" He'd nod. "Just thinking." I knew what that meant. I'd been just thinking for weeks. About betrayal, about hunger, about how people leave. One evening after supper, I asked, "Was that your wife in the picture?" He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Yes, her name was Mary. She's beautiful," I said softly. He nodded. "She was." "I'm sorry," I said. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was a long time ago. We sat in silence for a while. The fire cracked in the stove. I wanted to tell him about Daniel, about the lies, about how I begged for bread. But I couldn't yet. He said, "You don't have to stay if it's too hard here." I looked at him. "I'll stay. I need to work," he nodded. "Then we'll make it work." A week later, I burned a loaf of bread. Smoke filled the kitchen. Ethan ran in coughing. "What happened?" "I think I killed the bread," I said, laughing nervously. He laughed too. That bread never had a chance. His laugh was deep, warm. It surprised me. "You should laugh more," I said. He looked at me. "Maybe you should too." For a second, our eyes met. Something passed between us, something small but real. He said, "You're doing good work, Grace." "Thank you," I said. "I like it here." He smiled again. "Good. The house likes you too." That night, when I went to bed, I thought about his words. Maybe houses remember kindness, I thought. Maybe this house had waited for laughter again. One night I couldn't sleep. I heard the wind outside, whispering against the windows. I got up and walked to the kitchen for water. The lamp was on. Ethan sat at the table, staring at the same picture frame. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked softly. He shook his head. "No, me neither," I said. He looked tired, older than before. I keep thinking about her, he said. I still hear her voice sometimes. I sat down across from him. It's okay to miss her, I said. He nodded. It's hard to forget someone who made silence feel safe. I looked at him and said quietly, I think I know what you mean. He looked at me for a moment, then smiled faintly. You've had your own storms, haven't you? Yes, I whispered. But I'm still standing. That's what matters, he said. We didn't talk after that. We just sat there listening to the wind. Days turned into weeks. The ranch felt like a world of its own. Ethan worked hard but never raised his voice. Tommy joked often. I learned how to bake, ride, even mend fences. But at night I still dreamed of Daniel. His voice, his lies, the way he left me. Sometimes I woke with tears, but I never told Ethan. One morning he found me outside watching the sunrise. You're up early, he said. I like the light, I said. It makes me feel new, he nodded. Sunrise does that. Makes you forget the night. I looked at him and said softly, maybe that's why I came here. To forget the night, he said. Then you're in the right place. For the first time in months, I believed it. I walked down the hall with a mop in my hand. The ranch was quiet. The wind outside touched the windows softly. I had finished most rooms, but one door at the end caught my eye. It was half open, dark inside. I pushed it slowly. Hello? I whispered. No one answered. The smell was different, like old wood and dried roses. Dust lay thick on the furniture. The curtains hung still, the air heavy with memories. I stepped in, careful not to make a sound. On the table I saw pictures, black and white, faded. A woman smiled in most of them. She had soft eyes, the kind that spoke without words. Her name came to me from something Lydia once said. Mary. Ethan's wife, I said to myself. There was a silver frame on the shelf. It showed Ethan holding her hand. He looked younger, happier. My throat tightened. I shouldn't be here, but I couldn't move. Do not touch, I told myself. Still, my fingers brushed the frame. The glass was cold. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Heavy. Grace, Ethan said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the air like a knife. I froze. I'm sorry, I said quickly. I didn't mean to. He stepped closer. What are you doing here? I was cleaning. The door was open. I didn't know. He looked around the room, then back at me. His eyes were calm but sad. Don't clean this room, he said. I nodded, my heart beating fast. I understand. He walked to the window, touched the curtain, then turned to me. This was her room, he said. Mary liked the light in here. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed silent. He looked at the photo in my hands. She made that frame, he said softly, with her own hands. Said it would last forever. I placed it back. It's beautiful. He nodded. She was too. Silence filled the room again. I wanted to leave, but my feet stayed still. I'm sorry, Ethan, I said again. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't, he said. This house just remembers more than I can handle. He smiled a little, but his eyes were far away. I looked around once more. There was a hat on the bed, a woman's coat on the chair. Everything looked untouched, like someone might walk back in any minute. Do you miss her? I asked. He didn't answer at once. He took a deep breath. Every day, he said. But the pain gets quieter. Never gone, just quieter. His words stayed in my mind. Quiet pain. I knew that too well. He walked to the door. Come on, he said. You've worked enough for today. I followed him out. My hands still shook. Outside, the hallway light felt sharp. My chest hurt, like I had walked through someone's heart. Ethan, I said. He stopped and turned. Thank you for not yelling, I said softly. I really didn't mean. He shook his head. You don't need to say sorry. Some rooms just keep people alive. His voice was rough, tired. Then he walked away. I stood there alone for a long time. I thought of Daniel, my husband. The lies, the shouting, the silence after he left. I remembered how he looked when he said, You'll never survive without me. He was wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the small window in my room. The sky was black, full of stars. I thought about Mary, about how someone could love so deeply that even years later, the love stayed like perfume in the air. Maybe love doesn't die, I thought. Maybe it just hides in rooms no one cleans. The next morning, I saw Ethan at breakfast. He looked tired but calm. "Coffee?" I asked. He nodded. "Please." I poured it for him. He said, "Grace, you work hard." "I need to," I said. "It helps me think less." He gave a small smile. Thinking less can be good. We sat in silence. Only the sound of the clock filled the room. "Ethan," I said after a while, "do you ever feel like you're living in someone else's story?" He looked up. "All the time," he said, "until you write your own." I didn't answer. I just stared at the steam rising from my cup. His words were simple but heavy. After breakfast, he went outside to the horses. I watched him from the window. The wind moved his hair. He looked strong but lonely. I touched the bread on the table. Still warm. I had baked it early. It smelled like home. Home, I whispered. The word felt strange on my tongue. I hadn't used it in a long time. When he came back in, he said, "That bread smells good." "Thank you," I said. "I tried a new recipe." He took a piece, tasted it, then smiled. "Mary used to bake on Sundays," he said. I nodded. "Then maybe I'll bake every Sunday too." He looked at me, his eyes soft. "You don't have to be her, Grace." "I know," I said, "but maybe I can bring back the smell she loved." He didn't reply, but that small smile stayed on his face. The day passed quietly. Work, dust, sunlight. Tommy helped me clean the porch. Lydia came by with eggs. The ranch was starting to feel less like a place to survive and more like a place to breathe. When evening came, Ethan said, "Thank you for staying." I looked at him. "Where else would I go?" He said, "Most people leave when they see ghosts." "I have my own," I said. He nodded. "Then maybe you and I understand each other." That night, I sat again by the window. The sky looked the same, but I didn't feel as empty. I thought about Ethan's eyes when he spoke of Mary and about the way he didn't hide his pain. I whispered, "Quiet pain." I had lived loud pain before, shouting, crying, begging. But this was different. This was the kind of pain that teaches you how to live again. I closed my eyes and made a promise to myself. I would not clean the memory room. But I would clean the dust inside my heart, and maybe, just maybe, I could start again. I was cleaning the study that morning. The sun came through the small window, warm and quiet. Dust danced in the light. The air smelled like old paper and wood. I moved the books one by one, careful not to break anything. Then I saw a small box under the desk. It was brown, tied with a thin white ribbon. My hand stopped. I looked around. Ethan was outside fixing the fence. I opened the box slowly. Inside were letters, old, folded, some yellow at the edges. The first one started with a name. "Dear Mary," I froze. My heart started to beat fast. Mary, his wife, the one I'd never seen but felt everywhere in this house. I told myself, "Don't read it, Grace." But my eyes betrayed me. I opened one. "Dear Mary, the nights are long without you. The horses still wait for your voice. I can't sleep. I still hear you laugh." The words hurt, even though they weren't mine. I read another. "The bread you baked still smells in the kitchen. I don't throw the jar away. Maybe your hands touched it last." My chest felt heavy. I didn't know if I should cry or smile. Then I heard Ethan's boots outside. I hid the box behind me, but my hands were shaking. He came in, his shirt wet with sweat. "You still working?" he asked. "Yes," I said, my voice thin. "Just cleaning." He looked at the box. "What's that?" I swallowed hard. "It was here." I didn't. He walked closer. His eyes fell on the open letter. The air turned heavy. "You read them," he said quietly. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't mean to. He didn't shout. He just stood there, his face hard, eyes far away. I tried to speak again. "They're beautiful letters." He didn't move. "They're not for you," he said. The words cut deep, but I understood. I nodded. I know. He turned away, went to the window, and looked outside. The silence between us felt like a storm. I said softly, "You loved her very much." He didn't answer. I waited, then added, "I think she'd be proud of you." He turned around, eyes red. "Proud of what?" "That I'm still talking to ghosts." I wanted to reach out, but my hands stayed still. "We all talk to ghosts," I whispered. "Some of us just hide it better." He looked at me for a long time. Then his voice broke. "I wrote them, but never sent them." "What's the use?" I said, "Sometimes writing is the only way to stay alive." He stared at me. "You know about that?" "Yes," I said. "I write too. I write to people who never read." His face softened. "To Daniel?" I nodded. "To him. To the girl I used to be. To the woman I'm trying to become." He sighed, sat down on the chair, and rubbed his eyes. "You should have left them," he said again, but not in anger. "I couldn't," I said. "They found me." He gave a sad smile. "They always do." We sat in silence. The only sound was the wind moving through the window. After a while, he said, "Mary liked letters. She said words keep people alive." I smiled faintly. She was right. He looked at the papers in my hands. "Read one more," he said suddenly. I blinked. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Go on." I took the top letter and read aloud. "Dear Mary, I tried to bake bread again. It burned. I laughed because I could almost hear you scolding me. The house is too quiet. Maybe one day it will sound like home again." My voice trembled. I couldn't go on. He took the paper from me. "She made this place feel alive," he said. "After she died, it was like time stopped." I whispered, "Then why hire me?" He smiled faintly. "Because I saw someone else who was broken. Maybe I thought, if we work, maybe both of us can live again." Something inside me cracked. "You did," I said softly. "You made me live again." He looked down. "Did I?" "Yes," I said. "You gave me a job when I had nothing. You gave me a reason to wake up." He didn't speak for a long moment. Then he said, "You read my pain, Grace. Now tell me yours." I hesitated, then said, "Daniel took everything. The house, the money, the faith I had in love. When I begged for work, people laughed. But I promised myself I'd never beg again, only work." He nodded slowly. "That's why you whispered those words on 'I'll work for bread'." I smiled weakly. "Yes, I thought bread was all I needed." "But it wasn't," he asked quietly. "What do you need now?" I looked at him, his tired eyes, his calloused hands. "Peace," I said, "and maybe a friend." He smiled, a small, real smile. "You already have one." For the first time, his voice felt warm. Outside, Tommy's laugh echoed from the stables. The wind smelled like hay and sunshine. Ethan stood up and said, "Come on. Let's feed the horses before the sun drops." I nodded. "All right." He stopped near the door. "Grace," he said softly. "Yes?" "Don't clean that box. Leave it there. Mary's letters can stay. Maybe they'll remind me what I lost. And what I found." I smiled. "Then I'll leave them right there." We walked outside together. The light was golden, the sky wide and kind. As we walked, he said, "You know, I never wrote a letter after her." "Maybe you should," I said. "But this time send it." "To who?" I looked at him. "To whoever needs to read it." He nodded slowly. Maybe I already did. The air grew quiet again, but not heavy anymore. I glanced back at the house, that small room with the letters waiting in silence. They weren't just his words anymore. Somehow they belonged to both of us now. That night, after dinner, I sat by the small window in my room. I took out my own piece of paper and began to write. "Dear Tomorrow, I worked for bread once. Now I work for hope. I am not the woman I was. I'm learning to live again." I folded it and placed it inside my drawer. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. When I blew out the lamp, I could still see Ethan's letters in my mind. Words written in pain but kept alive by faith. Maybe that's what life was. Letters never sent, but somehow received. The sky darkened fast. I saw the clouds roll in from the west. "Ethan, look at that." I shouted over the wind. He didn't say anything. He just grabbed the rope and ran toward the horses. I ran after him, my boots sinking in wet mud. "Do you need help?" I asked. "Stay close," he said. His voice was low, steady, calm. The horses were panicking. I held one by the bridle while Ethan tried to calm another. Their eyes were wide. Their hooves struck the ground hard. I could feel their fear shaking through me. "Ethan, the roof!" I screamed. Rain was hitting the barn fast now. Water dripped from the ceiling. He looked up. "We need to get them inside." I grabbed another rope. "Which one first?" He didn't answer. He ran toward the biggest horse. Its hooves were sliding on the wet dirt. "Watch out!" I yelled, and he barely moved in time. Lightning flashed bright as day, and thunder shook the air. My heart jumped. I had never been so scared. "Grace, pull this," Ethan shouted, and I pulled hard. The rope dug into my hands. My palms stung. The wind threw rain into my face. I blinked fast. My hair was wet. My clothes were soaked. Every step was hard. Mud pulled at my boots. "Ethan, it's too much," I shouted. "No! We can do this!" His eyes burned with determination. I grabbed the smallest horse by its mane. It kicked, trying to get free. "Easy, easy," I whispered, stroking its neck. Lightning struck closer this time. The barn shook. Dust fell from the roof. The horses whinnied, louder than before. "Go left," Ethan shouted. "Keep it together." I followed him. My hands were raw. My arms ached, but I kept moving. I kept holding the horses. I saw his face wet with rain, hair plastered to his forehead. He never looked away from the animals. "Grace, behind me!" he shouted suddenly. I turned just as a bolt hit the corner of the barn. Wood splintered, fire sparking. My heart froze. "Move!" Ethan grabbed my arm and pulled me to the side. I stumbled, mud flying. My breath came fast. My chest hurt from running and fear. "Are you okay?" he asked, eyes wide. I nodded. "Yes, I think so." He didn't let go. "We need to get them all out." I looked at the horses. Their eyes were wild. Their legs were shaking. I could feel their fear mixing with mine. "Which one now?" I asked. "The black one." Fast, I ran ahead. My heart pounded. Rain hit my face. I slipped once, almost falling. But I grabbed the fence. I held on. The horse looked at me. Its eyes were wide. I whispered, "It's okay. I'm here." It calmed slightly. I led it slowly toward the safe pen. My hands were bleeding from the rope. Mud caked my clothes. I didn't care. "Not now." Ethan came running. "Good, quick, hurry." I followed his voice. The storm was loud. Thunder shook everything. My ears rang. My heart raced. But I kept moving. I kept helping. "Grace!" Ethan shouted. "The foal, hurry!" I ran toward the small foal in the corner. It was terrified. Its legs were shaky. It tried to run, but the mud held it. "Easy, little one," I whispered, crouching. My hands shook. I reached for it. It tried to bite me, but I stayed calm. "Careful," Ethan warned, standing nearby. I wrapped my arms around the foal. It pressed against me, trembling. "Shh, it's okay. I won't let you go." Lightning struck the barn again. Fire sparks flew near our feet. Ethan grabbed a bucket and threw water at the small fire. Smoke stung my eyes. "Almost there," he shouted. "Keep moving." I carried the foal. My boots were heavy with mud. My clothes were drenched. My arms ached, but I didn't drop it. The safe pen was close. I ran as fast as I could. Ethan followed with another horse. Rain hit our faces like knives. I could barely see, but I kept going. "We made it," I shouted as we pushed the horses inside. The animals were safe, but the barn roof had a hole now. Rain poured through. Lightning lit up the sky. Thunder roared. I collapsed on the ground, mud covering my face. My heart raced. My hands were bleeding. My clothes were soaked. Ethan knelt beside me. "You did good," he said softly. I looked at him. "We both did." He smiled faintly. "Yes, we did. You kept them calm." I was scared, I admitted. "I thought I might die." He reached out and touched my shoulder. "Fear is normal. Courage is acting anyway," I nodded. His hand was warm despite the rain. I felt my chest tighten. Not from fear, but something else. Something I couldn't name. "Look," he said suddenly. "The barn isn't perfect, but the horses are alive. That's what matters." I smiled weakly. "Yes, alive." He helped me stand. My legs were shaky. My body ached. "But I felt stronger somehow. I never thought I could do this," I said. "You did, and I knew you would," he replied. His voice was calm, sure. I looked at him. I wanted to say more, but words failed. I just nodded. The storm continued outside, but inside we had a small warmth. The fire in the barn corner burned low now. Smoke curled up. The animals were safe. "You know," Ethan said, "storms don't last forever." I laughed a little. "I hope so. My heart can't take another one like this." He looked at me and smiled faintly. "Mine neither." "But we survived." "Yes," I said. "We survived." We stood there, breathing hard, wet, exhausted. The storm raged, but inside we were safe. I touched my hands. Mud, blood, sweat. I looked at the horses. They were calm now, tired but alive. I felt a strange pride. I had helped. I had stayed. You saved the foal, Ethan said. I couldn't have done it alone. I couldn't have done it alone either, I said. He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes. Respect, relief, maybe even gratitude, I smiled. A small smile, but it reached my heart. The storm didn't feel so scary anymore. Not when I knew we had each other. Not when I realized that survival wasn't just about food, bread, or money. It was about saving someone else. About being there when it mattered. About holding on when everything else wanted to let go. Ethan reached out and touched my arm. Come inside, he said. I nodded, and together we walked toward the house. Water ran down our clothes. Mud smeared our boots. But I didn't care. Not anymore. The storm would end. And so would our fears. For the first time I felt it. Courage wasn't in being fearless. It was in standing in the storm, together, and refusing to fall. I glanced at Ethan. Thank you, I whispered. He shook his head. No, thank you, Grace. You kept us alive. I laughed softly. We both did. We went inside. I shook off the water. He handed me a towel. Our hands touched. My chest warmed. Not from fire, from something stronger. I looked out the window. The rain was still falling hard, but I didn't fear it anymore because I knew we could survive anything, together. I was feeding the horses when I saw him. Daniel. My stomach tightened. His clean suit and shiny shoes stood out against the dusty ranch. He smiled that same smug smile I hated. Grace, he said, voice calm, smooth. We need to finalize the divorce. I froze, my hand still on the bucket. My heart beat fast. The word divorce felt like a knife. I don't have the papers, I stammered. Daniel laughed lightly. You left them on the table in the city. I brought copies. He waved the papers at me. Sign here. I looked down. The papers smelled like him. Ink, perfume, money. Everything he ever loved except me. I swallowed hard. Why are you here? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. To finish what we started, he said. We need closure. Closure. The word made me laugh bitterly. He had taken everything. My home, my money, my pride. And now he called it closure. Ethan appeared behind me. Silent, tall, and steady. He didn't say a word, but I felt him. Felt his presence. Something inside me wanted to run to him, hide behind him. Daniel's eyes flicked to Ethan. This is the man keeping you here, he sneered. The cowboy, you're just a woman begging for bread. I always knew it. I felt my cheeks burn. My fists clenched. I wanted to scream. I am not begging. I am surviving. But my voice caught in my throat. Ethan stepped forward slowly. She doesn't need your approval, Daniel. Daniel's eyes narrowed. And who are you to speak? I am the man who won't let you hurt her, Ethan said. His voice was calm, but the words carried weight. Daniel laughed, a low, dangerous sound. She begged for bread, and now you feed her. Charming. You think you're a hero? I flinched. The words cut deeper than I expected, but I didn't step back. Ethan didn't step back. Together we held our ground. Daniel, I said, shaking, I am not begging for bread anymore. Not from you, not from anyone. He stared at me. A flash of something. Surprise, maybe fear, passed over his face. Then he sneered. You think you're strong? You're just desperate. I am not desperate, I said, voice stronger now. I work. I earn. I survive. I don't beg. Daniel's hand trembled slightly as he held the papers. He tore them roughly. You're weak. Always weak. I laughed, a short, bitter laugh. Weak? You destroyed my life, but I am still standing. I am stronger than you ever were. Ethan moved slightly closer. I felt his hand brush mine for a moment. Comfort, strength, a silent promise. Daniel scoffed. You found your little cowboy. Cute story. But don't forget, I built you, I gave you everything. You gave me nothing, I said. You took. You lied. You left me with pain and shame. That's all you gave me. He clenched his jaw. You'll regret this. One day, you'll beg for me. I shook my head. No, never again. Ethan's eyes softened, but he didn't speak. He knew. Words weren't needed. He understood. Daniel looked at us, frustration growing. Fine, he said finally. Sign the papers or I'll take this to court. You know the law. I picked up the pen slowly. My hands didn't shake anymore. I signed. Each word felt like a piece of my past falling away. Daniel grabbed the papers. Goodbye, Grace, he said. His smile was false, cold, empty. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He left the way he came, arrogant, believing he still had power over me. I turned to Ethan. I hate him, I whispered. You don't need to hate him anymore, he said softly. He's gone. He can't hurt you now. I looked at him. His eyes were steady, calm, safe. Something inside me began to heal. I thought I'd never see him again. I said. My voice trembled. And now I feel so angry. It's okay to be angry, Ethan said, but don't let him control your feelings anymore. I nodded. His hand brushed mine again. I didn't pull away. For the first time in weeks, I felt calm. Later, I went to the barn. The horses were quiet. The wind whispered through the trees. I thought about Daniel's words, about his smug smile, about all he had taken. I promised myself something, never beg again. Not for love, not for respect, not for approval. I would live for me, for survival, for courage. I sat on the hay bale. My hands smelled of horse and straw. I felt tired, but stronger. I thought about the bread I begged for weeks ago, the small kindness Ethan had offered me. That kindness had saved me, not Daniel's money. Not his charm, just simple, quiet help, I whispered to myself. I will never beg again. Ethan came to the barn silently. He leaned against the doorway. I didn't need to ask if he had watched. I knew he had. You're strong, he said simply. No, I said, smiling faintly. I am learning. He nodded. Learning is enough. I felt a weight lift from my chest. The ghosts from the city couldn't haunt me anymore. Not Daniel, not my past. I stood and brushed my hands off. The sun was low. Shadows stretched across the barn. I think I'm ready for the future, I said. A future that's mine, not his, not anyone else's. Ethan smiled faintly. And I'll be here, every step. I looked at him, silent, grateful, safe. I believe it, I said. I really do. For the first time I felt free, free from Daniel's chains, free from the shame he tried to leave me with. I walked out of the barn, my boots dusty, heart light. The wind carried the smell of horses and hay. The world felt wide, full of hope. I knew Daniel had tried to hurt me, but he had failed. I survived, and I would keep surviving. I would never beg for bread, not from a man, not from life, not ever. And I would never forget the quiet cowboy who stood by me, who let me be me, who didn't need me to be anything else. I was Grace. I had survived betrayal. I had survived shame. And now I would live. The past was behind me. The ranch, the wind, the horses, and Ethan, they were my present, my strength. My home, and I would never beg again. I woke early. My hands shook. Daniel's words still burned in my mind. I had tried to forget, but I could not. I needed to work. I needed bread. I went to the kitchen. Good morning, I said softly. The smell of flour filled my nose. The oven was warm. I put the dough on the counter. My hands kneaded it slowly. I thought of Ethan. Why so quiet? He asked. He was sitting in the corner, boots on the floor, hat in his hands. I'm fine, I said. My voice felt small. Just baking, he smiled faintly. Not like before, but a little. Bread smells good. You make it well, I tried to smile back. My heart ached. I could not stop thinking about Daniel, about his lies, about how easy he left. I put the dough in the oven. I watched the timer. I walked back to him. "Do you want tea?" I asked. "Yes, please," he said. His voice was low, quiet. I poured the tea. The steam rose in little clouds. He took the cup. "Thank you," he said. "You are welcome," I said. I wanted to say more, but the words stuck in my throat. The timer rang. I went to check the bread. Smoke filled the kitchen. I coughed. The crust was black. "Completely burnt. Oh no," I whispered. I hit the counter. My hands felt weak. My stomach turned. I wanted to cry. Ethan came to the kitchen. He looked at the bread. Then he laughed. A real laugh. Not loud, but soft and warm. "You burned it," he said. His eyes were gentle. "It is only bread." I looked at him. His laugh felt strange. I wanted to be angry, but I could not. "I ruined it," I said. "I can never do anything right. You work hard." "That is enough," he said. He took my hand. His skin was rough, warm. I felt a spark. My heart raced. I moved my hand away. "I do not deserve kindness," I said. My voice shook. "Maybe," he said, "but you get it anyway." He smiled faintly. Then he turned to the window. The sun was rising. Look, morning comes even after night. I watched the light. It was soft and yellow. The kitchen felt warm. For the first time in days, I breathed. "I miss my home," I said quietly. "Not the city. Not Daniel, but home. A real home." "You are at a home," he said. "Maybe not your first one. But you are safe here," I nodded. "Safe? Maybe." My voice sounded weak. I looked at the burnt bread. I wanted to throw it away, but I left it on the counter. A small memory of failure. We sat together, drinking tea. Silence filled the room. But it was not heavy. It felt soft, comforting. "Do you remember your first bread?" he asked suddenly. "Yes," I said. "It burned too." I laughed a little. The sound surprised me. My mother laughed. She said, "Bread teaches patience." Ethan smiled. "Then we are learning together." We talked for hours, about simple things. The weather, the horses, the town, the bakery. His stories about Mary. I listened quietly. My heart ached for him, for her, for the life that passed. "You were happy once," I said. Before she passed?" "Yes," he said. His eyes were sad. "But happiness leaves, sometimes. We must wait for it again." I nodded. I understood. I had waited too, for so long, for love, for safety, for kindness. "I feel like I am falling apart," I said. "Sometimes I cannot fix myself." "You do not need to fix yourself," he said softly. "You just need someone to stay." The word struck me. My chest tightened. Could I stay? Could I stay for him? Or for myself? Night came. The sky turned orange and pink. I cleaned the kitchen. Ethan sat by the fire. I watched him. His face was tired, but calm, peaceful. "Do you like him?" A thought whispered in my mind. "Daniel? No, never him." Only Ethan, I wanted to tell him. But I could not. The guilt was heavy. Loving him felt like betrayal. Betrayal of Mary. Betrayal of myself. "Grace," he said suddenly. "Come here." I went to him. He took my hand. "Do not hide from me." "I am not ready," I said. My voice trembled. I cannot love again. Not yet. Maybe never." "You can," he said. His voice low and sure. "But you have to try." I looked at him. His eyes were soft. I wanted to trust him, but fear held me back. I nodded slowly. "Maybe I will try." He smiled faintly. "Good, that is all I ask." We sat by the fire. The burnt bread smelled faintly in the kitchen. I laughed softly. "It is terrible," I said. "It is a lesson," he said. "Bread teaches patience." Again, I smiled. A real smile. My heart ached. But it was alive. Warm. I looked at him. At the fire. At the small home we shared. I wanted to speak. "I think I am falling for you," I whispered. He looked at me. No words, just a nod. His hand held mine tighter. I felt safe. Wanted. Wanted like never before. "I should not," I said. "I cannot replace her." "You are not replacing anyone," he said. "You are here. You are alive." "That is enough." I leaned on him. The fire crackled. The night outside was cold, but inside it was warm. I closed my eyes. My heart beat fast, scared, excited. I thought of Daniel, of the city, of pain and lies. But now I was here, alive, learning again, feeling again. We stayed like that until sleep came. I dreamed of bread, of fire, of hands held in silence. I dreamed of a home. I woke the next morning. The burnt bread was gone. Ethan had thrown it away. I smiled. A new day. A chance to try again. To live again, and maybe, just maybe, to love again. I woke to a low moan. The room was dark and cold. Ethan lay under the thin blanket, shivering. His face was pale. I rushed to him. "Ethan! You're burning." I touched his forehead. The heat burned my hand. I'm fine," he whispered, voice weak. "No, you're not," I said, voice trembling. "You have fever. You need rest," he coughed. I grabbed a glass of water and helped him sit up. "Drink," I urged. Slowly. "I hate feeling weak," he said, eyes half closed. "You're not weak," I said, trying to smile. "You just need help. And I'm here." He coughed again, harder this time. I moved the blanket over him and sat beside the bed. "Do you want medicine?" I asked. "I don't care," he muttered. His hand brushed mine. I shivered. I wanted to hold him close, but I stayed back. The storm outside rattled the windows. Rain hit the roof like a drum. I listened to it and thought about how fragile life could be. Just days ago, he was strong, working in the barn, riding horses. And now he looked like a boy in need. "You need food," I said softly. "Even soup will help." He shook his head. "I'm not hungry," I frowned. "Ethan, you need to eat, please." He looked at me and tried to smile. "Grace, you do too much for me. I worry," I admitted. "You mean too much to me?" He looked away. I knew he was hiding something. His eyes always held a storm. I wanted to ask, but I stayed silent. Hours passed. I sat on the floor beside the bed. Every cough made my heart race. I held his hand when he trembled. "You'll get better," I whispered. "I'll help you." He turned his face toward me. "Promise me." "You won't leave, Grace." I froze. His words hit me like a cold wind. I wanted to say yes, but fear gripped my heart. What if I failed him? What if he left me first? I promise," I said, voice shaking. His eyes softened. Relief washed over his face. "Thank you," he whispered. I swallowed hard. I wanted to mean it with all my heart, but a part of me was still scared. Scared of loving again. Scared of losing again. The night passed slowly. I stayed awake watching him sleep. Every breath he took felt like a miracle. I thought about all the storms we survived. Fire, betrayal, hunger, cold. And now, illness. Life tested us in every way. By morning, his fever broke slightly. I cooked porridge, careful not to wake him. He smelled it and smiled weakly. "You cooked," he said. "I smell it." "Thank you." "Eat," I said. "You need strength." He took a small spoon and ate slowly. I watched every bite. Relief filled me. I whispered a quiet prayer for him. After breakfast, he tried to get up. "Don't," I said firmly. "Rest," he smiled faintly. "You worry too much." "I can't help it," I admitted. "I care." The morning sun filtered through the curtains. I cleaned the small room while he lay there. Every movement was careful. I didn't want to disturb him. Around noon, he spoke. "Grace, why do you stay?" I paused. "Because I care about you." "About us." He looked at me, eyes searching. "Even with the past?" I nodded. "Yes, we can't change the past, but we can survive it. Together." He reached for my hand again. His fingers were cold, weak. I held them gently. "I never thought I'd find someone who stays." "I'll stay," I said. "Always." He coughed faintly but smiled. "I hope your promise is real." "I mean it," I whispered. Every word. The afternoon passed slowly. I sat by him, reading aloud from an old book he loved. Every so often he'd murmur a comment. He smiled more than yesterday. I felt a small hope growing inside me. At dusk he asked me to sit closer. "Grace, promise me again," he said softly. I chuckled nervously. "Again?" "Yes, I need it," he said, eyes serious. "I need to know you'll stay, even when I'm hard to love." I took a deep breath. His hands were fragile in mine. I looked at him and spoke the truth. "I promise. I won't leave. I'll stay, no matter what comes." Tears filled his eyes. "You're brave," he whispered. "Braver than me." "No," I said. "We're brave together." The night fell. I watched him sleep. I stayed close. I held his hand. I remembered his words. "Promise me you won't leave." And I promised again, silently in my heart, where no one could doubt it. I thought about the past, about loss, about fear. But for the first time, I believed in the present. I believed in survival. I believed in love. Rain tapped the window. Wind howled. But inside, the room was warm. I sat beside him, holding his hand through the dark. I whispered softly, I'll stay. Forever, he murmured in his sleep. Thank you, Grace. I smiled through my tears. I knew that surviving wasn't just about life. It was about keeping promises, about staying, about love that didn't flee in fear. Hours passed. The room grew quiet. I held his hand until my fingers ached. I thought about everything we had lost. I thought about everything we might still lose, and yet, in that moment I knew we could survive anything. Together. When he stirred in the night, I whispered, I'm here, always. He smiled faintly, eyes closing. Always, he repeated. I lay beside him for a while, exhausted but peaceful. My heart felt full even though fear lingered. I knew I had made a promise I must keep, not just to him, but to myself. Love was not forgetting. Love was staying. And I would stay. Smoke filled the barn. I screamed, Ethan, no! My voice cracked. Flames licked the old wood. I ran inside, coughing. My eyes stung. The horses were panicked, kicking and whinnying. Tommy was frozen, tears streaking his dusty face. Tommy, come out now! I yelled. My voice shook. He looked at me, then at the flames. I grabbed his hand. We have to go, now! He didn't move. The fire roared closer. Heat burned my cheeks. Then I saw Ethan. He was lifting Tommy, carrying him on his back. Smoke curled around him. My heart stopped. Ethan, get out! I screamed again. My voice felt tiny against the fire. He looked back. Our eyes met for a brief second. I saw his jaw set. He didn't hesitate. Flames spread fast. The roof creaked. Wood snapped. Dust and sparks filled the air. I tried to think. Where could I go? How could I reach them? My chest burned. My hands shook. The smell of smoke made me cough violently. I found a bucket of water nearby. I threw it on a small fire near the doorway. It hissed. I grabbed a blanket, wrapping it around my face. Come on, Ethan, Tommy! I shouted, running closer. Heat seared my arms. My lungs burned. My legs felt weak. Ethan stumbled slightly but kept moving. Tommy clung to his back. Flames blocked their way. I ran ahead. Here, use this. I waved them toward the side exit. Smoke choked me. My throat hurt. I nearly fell. My hands scraped the ground. They made it through the side. I ran to them. Are you okay? I grabbed Ethan's arm. His face was blackened with smoke. His shirt was torn. He coughed deeply. I'm fine, he said, voice strained. Tommy clung to him. Scared, Tommy whispered. I hugged him tightly. The fire spread quickly. The barn's roof collapsed with a deafening crack. I cried out. No, the barn. Everything! Ethan held me. His arms were firm despite the smoke and sweat. We're alive, he said. That's what matters. My tears fell on his burnt sleeve. I shivered. The heat, the fear, the relief, it overwhelmed me. We moved to the yard. The horses were scared, running in circles. I guided them to the field. Go, go! I shouted. My voice was hoarse. Ethan followed. We watched the barn burn. Flames consumed everything. My heart felt heavy. All the work, all the memories. Gone. Is everyone safe? I asked, trembling. Ethan nodded. Yes, Tommy is fine. Horses, too. I exhaled shakily. My legs were weak. My stomach churned. I felt faint. Ethan crouched beside me. Breathe, Grace. You're safe now. I leaned on him, coughing. Smoke lingered in the air. My hair smelled of fire. My clothes were wet with sweat and water. After a while, we went back inside the house. Ethan sat silently, staring at the floor. Tommy curled up on the couch, exhausted. I washed the soot from my hands and face. My hands were red and scraped. I went to the drawer in Ethan's room to get towels. That's when I saw it, a small envelope tucked behind a frame. The handwriting was delicate, familiar. My heart thudded. I recognized it. Mary's handwriting. Ethan's late wife. I pulled it out carefully. The paper felt fragile. My fingers shook. I opened it slowly. My eyes filled with tears. It read, If love finds you again, don't turn it away. Live fully, even if I am gone. Let kindness guide your heart. Do not close it for fear of pain. Love is stronger than loss. My chest tightened. I read it again softly. Ethan, he should see this. He needs to hear it. I walked over to him. He sat silently, staring at his burned boots. I knelt beside him. Ethan, I said gently, holding the letter. He looked at me. His eyes were tired, haunted. Mary letter? He whispered. I nodded.
Yes, she wrote this for you.
For the day, when you needed it most. My voice trembled. He reached for the letter. His fingers shook. He opened it. I stayed silent. He read every word slowly. I watched his face change. Pain softened into something else. Sorrow mixed with relief. His eyes filled with tears. I felt my own tears fall again. I took his hand. "It's okay," I whispered. "You're not alone." Ethan held the letter to his chest. "She wanted me to love again?" His voice cracked. I nodded. "Yes, and she'd want you to live, Ethan, to survive, to let someone care for you." He looked at me. His eyes searched mine. I held my breath. The world outside was burning. Inside, we sat together in silence. The fire's smoke still drifted in the air. I held his hand tightly. "I'll stay," I said softly. "I won't leave, not now, not ever." He nodded, lips trembling. "Thank you." "Grace." The words were simple but heavy. I felt the weight of everything, the fire, the letter, the past, but also hope. That night, we didn't speak much. Ethan read Mary's letters aloud to Tommy and me. His voice broke sometimes. Mine did too. We laughed quietly at some words, cried at others. I felt closer to him than ever. Our hearts felt fragile but alive. I thought about Daniel, about all the pain he caused. But in that moment, with Ethan breathing beside me and the letter in my hand, it didn't matter. Karma, justice, revenge, none of it mattered. What mattered was life, survival, love, bread for the soul, not just the body. Hours passed. The fire burned down to embers. We sat outside, wrapped in blankets. Ethan didn't speak. I didn't either. We watched the smoke rise. The stars appeared above. The night was quiet. I felt his hand brush mine. A gentle squeeze. We both understood. The past could burn, but we were still here. I held the letter close to my heart. Mary's words echoed in my mind. "Don't turn it away." I looked at Ethan. I didn't have to say anything. He already knew. And I did too. Love was fragile, yes, but it could grow again, even after fire. I whispered softly, "We'll rebuild, Ethan. Together." He nodded. My hand still in his. Tommy asleep on the couch inside. The barn was gone, but the hope remained. That night, I learned that survival wasn't just about escaping fire. It was about holding on to those who mattered, and letting love in again, even if it scared you. We sat there until the sky lightened. Smoke drifted away. Birds sang quietly. The world had not ended, and neither had we. The sun felt warmer that morning. I stepped out onto the porch, breathing in the fresh smell of grass and earth. Birds chirped loudly. The ranch looked alive again. Ethan leaned on the railing, watching the horses in the field. "You see that?" he said, pointing. "They are happy." "They do look happy," I replied, smiling. "I think I am too." He turned to me. His eyes had a soft light now. "You know, Grace, spring comes even after the coldest winter." I laughed quietly. "Even after storms that almost break you?" "Yes," he said. "Even then." We went into the barn together. It was half rebuilt now. I picked up a plank and handed it to him. "Careful," Ethan said. "That's heavy." "I can handle it," I said, lifting it carefully. My arms ached, but I didn't mind. "You always work too hard," he said, shaking his head. "I learned from you," I teased. "You never stop either," he chuckled. "True, I guess we are alike in that." We nailed planks together. Hammering sounds filled the barn. I noticed a small smile on Ethan's lips. It had been months since I had seen him smile freely. "Do you remember the first storm?" I asked. "When we saved the horses?" "How could I forget?" he said, laughing softly. "You were soaked and angry at me." "I was angry at myself," I admitted. "Not you." "I felt useless." "You were not useless," he said. "You saved more than just the horses that day." I looked at him. My heart squeezed. "Saved more?" "You saved me," he said simply. I turned away, pretending to check the beams. My cheeks burned. "Don't say things like that," I whispered. "Why not?" he asked, smiling gently. "It's true. I kept working, my mind spinning." His words felt like sunlight after a long winter. Later we stopped and sat on the barn steps. Dust covered our clothes and sweat ran down our faces. I laughed, feeling light for the first time in months. "You know," Ethan said, "Daniel is finally paying for what he did." I froze. "What do you mean?" "I heard the news in town," he said. "Fraud charges. City police caught him. Abigail's schemes are exposed too." I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Good, but it still hurts. The years we lost. Yes, he said quietly. It hurts. But now you are free. I feel free, I admitted. I feel alive again. He reached for my hand. That's what matters. We survived, Grace. We held hands in silence, watching the horses run in the field. The sun touched everything with golden light. I felt peace, not pain. Do you ever think about leaving? I asked him after a long pause. Not anymore, he said. I never want to leave this place. Not with you, I squeezed his hand. I feel the same. That evening the sky was painted pink and orange. We sat on the porch, silent except for the soft sounds of the ranch. I rested my head on his shoulder. You don't work for bread anymore, Grace, he said, voice soft. You worked for love. Tears welled in my eyes. I cried quietly, not from pain, but from peace. I did, I whispered. I did work for love. He kissed my forehead gently. And I will feed you love forever, he said. I looked at him, the man who had saved me, healed me, and loved me. You already have, I said. That night, we cooked dinner together. The smell of bread filled the kitchen. Not the bread I once begged for, but bread we baked with our hands side by side. Ethan laughed when I burned the first loaf. I laughed too, shaking my head. You will never learn, he said, pretending to be stern. I am learning, I said, smiling. Just slowly. We ate in silence, but it was a warm silence. For the first time in a long time, I felt the world right. Days passed like this. Spring grew stronger. Flowers bloomed near the barn. Birds sang louder. Even the old oak tree in the yard seemed alive again. One morning I woke early. Ethan was already outside, brushing the horses. I went to him. Good morning, I said softly. Morning, he replied. Ready to work? Always, I said, smiling. We worked in the fields until the sun was high. Sweat ran down my back. My hands were sore. I loved it. Every ache reminded me I was alive, free, and part of something real. Ethan watched me silently, sometimes handing me tools, sometimes just smiling. I noticed how much he trusted me. I trusted him too. In the evenings, we talked more than we worked. We shared stories, jokes, and small secrets. Slowly, we rebuilt not just the barn, but ourselves. One afternoon, Lydia visited. You two look alive again, she said, smiling. It's good to see, I nodded. We are healing. Yes, she said. And you deserve it, Grace. I looked at Ethan. He nodded at me. We do, he said. That week, news from the city confirmed Daniel's arrest. I felt a cold satisfaction. Karma had finally found him. He would face the consequences. I did not want revenge, only closure. Ethan and I sat together on the porch that night, watching the sunset. We held hands and stayed quiet, listening to the sounds of spring. You are strong, Grace, Ethan whispered. I am proud of you, I smiled, leaning against him. I learned from you, I said. You taught me to survive, to love, to trust again. And you taught me too, he said softly. To hope again. I felt tears in my eyes once more. This time they were tears of gratitude. The pain of the past still lingered, but it did not control me anymore. We stayed there until the stars came out. The ranch was calm, alive, and safe. My heart was full. I knew no matter what storms might come, spring would always return. And so, we rebuilt our lives, side by side, hand in hand, hearts healing together. The bread we shared, the love we found, and the peace we held would carry us forever. I was no longer the woman who begged for bread. I was the woman who chose love, survival, and hope. The sun set, warm and golden. Ethan whispered again softly, You are home, Grace. I closed my eyes. Yes, I was home. I opened the door of our bakery, the smell of fresh bread hitting me first. Morning, Grace, Ethan said, wiping his hands on a cloth. Morning, I replied, tying my apron. He nodded toward the ovens. Bread needs love, not hurry, I laughed softly. I think you love it more than I do. He smiled, shaking his head. Maybe, but you worked for it first. I felt warmth spread inside. Worked for bread. And found you. Ethan laughed, low and quiet. And you gave me back my heart. The bell rang. Good morning. 2 loaves, please, a woman said. I smiled, reaching for the bread. Of course. Mary's bread is the best today. Ethan came behind the counter. She's the woman who worked for bread. And fed me life, I whispered. The woman looked confused. Ethan winked. I rolled my eyes. Grace, the new batch is ready. Can you help me pack? He asked. Already done half, I said, holding a tray of buns. Good. We make a team, huh? Yes, team, I said, smiling. We worked silently, letting the oven's warmth fill the room. The town slowly came alive. Faces appeared, familiar and new. Grace, this bread is perfect, Mr. Reed said. Your hands are magic, I laughed. Just following Ethan's instructions. He grinned. Good student, good teacher. I shook my head. You taught me patience and kindness. Ethan leaned on the counter. I learned too. From you. I felt my chest tighten. His words always did that. The afternoon sun poured through the windows. The bakery smelled of flour, sugar, and hope. Do you remember the first day? I asked quietly. Ethan looked at me. You were scared, hungry, silent. And you fed me, I said. Not just bread. Hope too, he laughed softly. I didn't know I had hope left. Maybe we found it together, I said, smiling. He didn't answer. Just watch the loaves rise in the oven. I picked one up, warm and golden. Every loaf tells a story, doesn't it? Ethan nodded. Our story. Hard times, tears and love. I pressed my hand to mine. And forgiveness. The bell rang again. A child ran in, eyes wide. Mom, can I have one? He asked, pointing at the bread. I smiled. Of course, little one. Which one do you like? He pointed at the round rolls. I handed them over. Ethan crouched. See? Even small hearts need bread. And hope, I laughed. You talk too much, cowboy. Maybe, but it's worth it. We worked until evening, hands covered in flour, smiles on our faces. Time to close? I asked. Ethan nodded. Let's count the bread first. We counted together. Not a perfect number, but enough. Enough to feed the town, enough to feed us. I leaned against the counter. I never thought bread could feel like this. He looked at me. It's not the bread. It's the sharing. The story, us, I swallowed. Us? He smiled. Yes, Grace, us. I looked around the bakery. Every loaf, every tray, every smile told me we survived. Together, I touched a loaf gently. We worked for bread and built a life. Ethan's hand found mine. Forever, Grace, we feed each other forever. I smiled, feeling the warmth spread. Flour on my hands, love in my heart, hope in the air. The sun set behind the windows. Shadows stretched long. Tomorrow, Ethan said softly, we bake again. Yes, I said. Together. We stood there a moment, hands entwined, eyes on the loaves. Life was simple. Bread was warm. Hearts were full, and I knew this was the peace I had worked for, waited for, and found. The town, the bakery, Ethan, me. We shared more than bread. We shared life. We shared hope. We shared forever. I woke to the soft light of dawn. The porch smelled like fresh bread from our bakery. I took a deep breath and felt the quiet around me. Ethan was gone. I touched the empty space beside me, remembering his weight, his warmth. My heart ached, but the ache was different. It was soft. It was full of memories. Morning, Tommy, I said, seeing the boy carry a basket of eggs. He smiled shyly. Morning, Miss Grace, he said. I nodded and let him go. He was growing fast, taller than last year. He reminded me of hope. I sat down with my notebook. My hands shook. I opened it and began writing. Ethan fed me bread. I fed him life, I whispered to myself. Tears came quickly, but I did not hide them. I let them fall. I could feel him near, in the wind, in the trees. The bakery doors creaked. I looked up. Mrs. Reed stood there holding a basket of apples. Grace, she said gently. It's a hard morning, isn't it? I nodded, swallowing. Yes, it is. She came closer. But you're strong. You kept his memory alive. I smiled faintly. She patted my shoulder and walked away. The wind rustled the pages of my notebook. I remembered the first day I came to Ethan's ranch. I was hungry, cold, and scared. I whispered, I'll work for bread. And he fed me. Not just food. He fed my heart. Every day after, he stayed. He helped me. He protected me. He loved me silently. I closed my eyes. I remembered the nights we worked together in the barn. Rain pouring, horses restless, fire crackling in the stove. Hold still, he said one night. The horse is scared. His hand was strong, steady. I leaned closer and I said, I trust you. He only nodded. But I knew then that trust was love too. Miss Grace. Tommy's voice broke my thoughts. I looked up to see him waving. Yes, Tommy. He ran over. Do you want help with the bakery today? I smiled. Yes, let's go. We walked together. I carried the basket of flour. He carried eggs. Do you miss him? He asked softly. I nodded. Every day, Tommy, every day. He didn't say anything. He just squeezed my hand. I looked at him, this boy who had become family. I thought of Ethan's laughter, his calm voice, his hands guiding mine. And I knew he would want me to live, to keep moving, to keep the bakery open. He would want me happy. At the bakery, the smell of fresh bread filled the air. I smiled at the first customer. Good morning, sir, I said. He smiled back. Morning, Grace. The bread smells wonderful. I nodded. Thank you. Ethan would like that. My throat tightened. I wiped a tear quickly. I could do this. I had to. Tommy arranged the loaves on the shelf. I watched him. He would be proud, I said softly. Of what? He asked. Of you, Tommy, of all of us. Of the bakery. I saw pride in his eyes. He looked at me and said, I miss him too, Miss Grace. I nodded. Me too, Tommy, me too. Later I walked through the ranch. The horses were grazing. The wind whispered through the tall grass. I touched the wooden fence, the same one Ethan fixed after the storm. Every nail, every plank reminded me of him. I miss you, I said aloud. But I will keep going. I felt a strange peace. The pain was still there, but it was softer now. I went to the house. His favorite chair was empty. I sat down. I took out the letter he left me. His handwriting was messy but familiar. Grace, I fed you bread. You fed me life. Remember that love is in staying, not in saving. Live, laugh, and remember me kindly. I read it again. My tears fell, but I smiled. The smell of fresh bread from the oven called me. I walked back to the bakery. People were coming in, greeting me. Good morning, Miss Grace. Hello. Your bread smells wonderful today. I smiled at each of them. Each greeting reminded me that life went on. Ethan was gone, but the world still needed love. And I could give it. Tommy ran to me with a small loaf. Here, Miss Grace, we made it together. I took it. Thank you, Tommy. Ethan would be proud. He beamed. I want to be like him, he said. Like him? I asked. Strong, kind, and brave, like you and him. My heart swelled. I held him close. You already are, Tommy. You already are. In the evening, I went to the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in red and gold. I sat down, thinking about the past. The city, Daniel, betrayal, my tears, the storms, and Ethan. His quiet love, his hands, his voice, his patience. I whispered to the wind, thank you for him. For everything. I remembered the first bread he gave me. Simple, warm, but it meant more than anything. Every loaf we baked together was a memory. Every shared meal, every laugh, every argument, every silence. They were all pieces of love. And now, even in his absence, I felt it still. The night grew quiet. I looked at the stars. I could almost see his face in them. I imagined him smiling at me, saying, You did it, Grace. You lived. You loved. You stayed. I smiled through my tears. I whispered, I stayed, Ethan. I stayed. And I will keep going. I went inside. The bakery was closing. Tommy swept the floor. Good night, Miss Grace, he said. I nodded. Good night, Tommy. Sleep well. I turned back to the porch. I took a deep breath. Life was hard, but it was beautiful. And love, even after loss, remained. I sat in the quiet. I touched the chair where he used to sit. I whispered again, I fed you life, Ethan. You fed me bread. And I will carry both forever. The moon rose high. The ranch was calm. The bakery smelled of fresh bread. And I knew that even though he was gone, he would always be with me. I smiled softly. I was alone, but not lonely. I was strong, but not hardened. I was loved, and I could love again. I picked up my notebook and began to write, letting my memories flow onto the page. Ethan's words echoed in my mind. Love is in staying, not in saving. And I stayed. The night passed quietly. Stars shimmered. Wind whispered. I closed my eyes, feeling him near. His love, his strength, his kindness. It lived in me, in the ranch, in the bakery, in Tommy, in the bread we shared. I whispered one last time before sleep claimed me. Thank you, Ethan, forever. I dreamed of him, smiling. I woke with the sun again, ready to face another day. Bread awaited, hearts needed care, life demanded love, and I was ready. I was alive, I was loved, and I would stay, always.